So this session is just on dedicated SQL pools or SQL data warehouse. If you think it's about the Synapse suite, the serverless, the Spark, you are going to be disappointed. Find another session. No, not seriously, no joking. If you want that stuff and and which service to use and which service is better for you, not the right place to be. If you want to play and have some fun and learn about dedicated pools or SQL DW, this is the right session. So don't feel bad about getting up, leaving, walking out. It's better to do it now than in the middle when I will point at you and make it clear, and you'll miss the beginning of someone else's session. So of the people that are in here, so who's used SQL Data Warehouse? So, I mean, there's enough people in here that I can point individuals out. So you haven't. No, that man over there on the table with the laptop, with the, hi. So you haven't. Okay, this might not be the right session, okay? Who else hasn't used SQL DW? You haven't. Not the right session for you, but I would prefer if you stayed, okay? The sound guy is key. So just so you know, just so we set the right expectations, you don't come in here and say, he didn't talk about Synapse. We're talking about SQL dedicated pools, okay? The MPP engine bit, not the serverless, not the ADX, not the storage, not the networking, not the Power BI stuff, not the Git integration, not all the stuff that's going on, just so you're aware. Set the right expectations at the beginning, and then less people will be disappointed. You'll still be disappointed, don't get me wrong, you will be disappointed by this session. That's a given. It's just the amount of disappointment. How are we doing? It's really hard to see you, so it looks really bad that I'm doing that. And yeah, no, I would ask them to turn the lights down. Okay. So, hello. Is this how it's going to be? Right. We need a little bit of more energy. I know there's not very many of you, but so who went to the power hour yesterday? You went to power hour. Did no one go to? I got the most amount of complaints about the noise in the power hour with people cheering. So I really want to try and emulate that, and I need you guys to help me with that. So, is everyone ready? Look, I can see your lips not moving over there. Is everyone ready? The guy's still on the laptop. Are you ready? Okay, there's so few people in here. Right. Okay, so my name's Mark. I work for the Synapse Cat team. We're not called the Cat team internally, but it's far easier to tell you that, and obviously you don't need the team. So I work all the time in dedicated pools and serverless pools, and I help customers with the biggest problems, and I see a lot of issues. And so I thought I'll put together a session where I can look really smart in front of people. And I thought that's, because then they'll think I'm clever. But everything in the session is either all in public documentation or I have discovered it by accident. So it's not because I am clever, it's just because there's been an accident, I've discovered it. So we've got more people arriving. Hooray! Come in, sit down. So I'm not going to address. So hands up again who haven't used a dedicated pool. Okay, so all right. So we're going to go through the first demo. So I've got no slides. It's all demo, okay? So we're just going to go through scripts and we're just going to chat. Feel free to talk, jump up, come up, interact. It's that kind of session. Okay. So all the things in the session are all in the links. So this, effectively, everything in here is up on GitHub. These are some other GitHub links. And this is just some stuff that I put together. This is a website from my team. You know, the public documentation is pretty good. So, yeah, it'll be up. It's on GitHub. Just Google with your fingers. Google with Bing. You don't take pictures. If you go on to, so everything is up on GitHub. So you just need to type my name in. It's even hard to see the screen. Oh, glasses are better. Okay, that's why there was a problem. Okay, all right. All right, great. Let's get back. Okay, so what is a SQL data warehouse? It's a gang of who uses SQL Server? For those, everyone uses SQL Server, right? You don't use SQL. You haven't got your hand up. Yeah. Oh, well, all right, counts. All right. So, all right, pedantic. All right. Okay, so SQL Server. So think of, if you haven't used it, SQL DW, which was the old name, is like a gang of SQL servers. So all the problems that you had with a SQL server, just multiply that by the gang that you've now got, and then all the old problems of communicating with a gang. So you've got similar problems, and you've got all these extra problems. But you know, we have extra solutions. So what is a SQL DW? So I've just connected to it in Management Studio. You know, it looks just like SQL Server, but it isn't. It's so close to SQL Server that people get confused and they treat it like a SQL Server. That's the first problem, the first mistake. Come in, sit down at the back. There's loads of seats. So just be really careful. And if you go to the documentation, so for example, like Polybase, you will see, it supports all these cool features. Connects to Oracle, connects to SQL Server, and then you see the little big star, the little tiny star, except, and those features are not supported in dedicated pool. So just be very careful when you read the documentation for like merge, for Polybase, for a lot of T-SQL commands, that they're either not supported or they're supported in a slightly different way. So you just have to set your expectations right. Think of it as a different thing. All right. So I've done this session online. So really the only difference between me doing this online and me doing it in person is you can see the bottom half. That's the best bit, isn't it? Okay. So what I would normally do is I'd normally do a poll of the audience and find out what they want to cover and then cover those bits because there's too much to cover in the amount of time we've got. So how much time have we got? Plenty. Great. Okay. All right. 44 minutes. Okay, I haven't wasted enough. I need to pad for a bit. Okay. So add app version. So I'm connecting to my SQL data warehouse. What is a SQL data warehouse? It's a SQL Azure RTM. Wait, whoa. Is that what I'm expecting? What if I actually move off master and onto my actual data warehouse and I run it again? Hey, it's the right thing. So just be careful when you connect. You might connect to master. If you want to see what the SKU or the size is, this is the size I'm running. Every 500 is a machine, is a single node. So effectively, 1500 is 3 machines, 3 nodes. 3 compute nodes. You actually have a control node. So if you haven't seen the architecture, I'm not covering that, but we have some MIME later on, which you may be able to join in. So, right, the addition that we have, lovely. So essentially, all right, okay, I need to be on master to run this. I won't do that. The number of nodes, let's see what that says. We've got a control, and we've got some compute. So those from the Hadoop world, that's like your head node and your worker nodes. It's an MPP platform. You talk to the control, it sends messages and works with compute nodes. We have other DMVs. I'm not going to run them. I did want to cover some what's new, and I have to admit, if you go to our website, so who uses Docs? Yeah. I mean, that's very quiet. I mean, I thought we had this conversation. Do we need to have the conversation again? Who uses Docs? So you. No one else uses Docs? Is that what you're telling me? Who uses Docs? Is this really the right? I've got some things to give out, and these are coming home with me. If you're going to be a bad audience today, these are staying with me. Okay? You need to work a bit harder. You are letting me down and yourselves down. All right. So if we go to SQL dedicated pool release notes. So I had to eat a tiny bit of humble pie on this. So if you go down here, you don't read any of this. You would go to there and you go, oh, ooh, December 2020. That hasn't been updated in a while. So, I emailed some people internally and went, look, we've been releasing features, but we haven't been updating the page. This looks terrible. I mean, and then one of them emailed back and went, can you read? I mean, he didn't say that, but that was inferred that all the newest stuff is coming out on the blog and is coming out on what's new in Synapse. So you just need to be aware, even though it might look like there's nothing coming out, there is new stuff coming out monthly. So if we click on there, that takes us to the blog, and then there's a YouTube channel with a monthly update. So if you don't want to read, you can just watch it. So if you were in Andre Command's lightning talk yesterday, he talked about using those sort of, if instead of you having to read to keep up, just watch a video. The internet's not working very well, is it? That's going to be terrible for Azure stuff. Okay, there we go. Right, so you can just watch those, read those. And so what happened in February, and we can see some stuff happened. And you'll actually see that we made some changes in the dedicated pool. Or was it January? Yeah, no, there we go. Yeah. So, in fact, it's slightly harder to read. But, so, we've added some improvements, and we've added some, so, right, that's not easy. I'll show you how that works. But, just watch the videos. All right. What's new? Okay. All right. So this will set the level in the room. Is this the right room? So if this isn't interesting, this next bit, feel free to leave. Okay. So those who've used SQL DW before, you've used the DMVs, right? Dynamic management views. Everyone's happy with that term? Yeah. They're basically just information about the system. So if I do a very, very simple select from a table, and I'm using option label, so all that does is say that in the DMV, just write a bit of text so I can identify that query later. So it's doing nothing but that. So I'm going to write a very short query, and I'm going to write a very long. All right, connect. Okay. It should be all right. But I can change database if it makes you happy. I'll change database, and then I'll run a very long one, and then I'll use this to see what queries have executed. Do we need to embiggen the text, or can you see it on the screen? Bigger? You're all right at back? You're okay? All right. And so that's just saying where this label is something. And then if I scroll along, I see something called command. Does that seem very familiar with those that have used SQL Data Warehouse? Right. That string there is limited at 4,000 characters. I can't see the end of it. There should be some more stuff at the end. It basically truncates that string. And just to prove it, I can actually just get rid of that. So IntelliSense works. I can show you the length in there. So we've added a new column called command 2, and that will have, and if I tell you that has the full string, that's a lie. It has like 64K of the string. It doesn't have the entire string. Shh, don't tell anybody. That still needs to be worked on. So it will still truncate it. So if you want the full string, you have to use the query store. But that's, so just be aware of these tiny limitations. So I've created my own little DMV, my own little view over the DMVs. So if you're not excited that you can see the entire query string, when Power BI sends in massive queries that are hugely long, and they're over 4,000 characters, you can't view them, it's really a nightmare to debug. If that isn't exciting or interesting, then now is the time to leave. No, you can. No, really. Okay, all right, now you're in for the long term. Okay, I need some volunteers. So you, Victoria, Richard, Saranga, I need 4. Okay, up to the front. So, SQL Data Warehouse is a distributed system. And when you create a table, you're not creating a single table. In the background, you'll create, who's the tallest? Okay, so you stand at the back. You are our control node. Yeah, you're the control node. And these are your compute nodes. You've got 3 of them. Now, when I create a table, what's really happening is, and then underneath U3, we have these things called 60 distributions. Our data is divided across into 60. Imagine them, they're like partitions in your head, but they're not really partitions. But just think of them, so logically, think of them as partitions. We're partitioning our data into 60 bits. So Michael is in fact now responsible for 20 distributions. Richard is responsible for 20 distributions, and Victoria is responsible for 20 distributions. If I scale down, Michael, I'm decommissioning you, I'm scaling down. Now Richard is responsible for 30 distributions. Victoria is responsible for 30. So it gets divided evenly. So if you ever see, when you're scaling your DW, why the numbers are weird, it has to be divisible into 60. So if we scaled up, Michael comes in, and then I come in, and I'm going to be higher because I feel more important. We're each now responsible for 15 distributions. So so underneath the cover, when a query comes in, Saranga selects star from a table. Saranga splits that up and gives that to, effectively splits it into 60 parts. I get 15. I activate and run those 15. You'll run those 15 in parallel, 15, 15. So we're all doing this in parallel. So if I need to query one row from a table, like select star from table where ID equals 1, right? You give that to all of us, and we all have to run it, because we don't know where that data is. It's distributed across us. So I've got the data, and then I return it back, and then you go, I haven't got any data, I haven't got. So these are all, we're all working. So does that sort of, it's sort of an abstract concept, and once you get that in your head, it sort of makes sense why when we run a 500, people say SQL DW is slow, it's not the right thing, it's not doing the right workload. If you want a pinpoint query, use SQL DB, perfect for that. But if you want to query tens of thousands, millions of rows, billions of rows, or in my session later, I try, but fail to do 1 trillion rows. And in fact, querying 1 trillion rows takes about 19 seconds on a small DW. So that's the type of scale. This is where people get it wrong. They go, SQL DW, yeah, I'll just run a few million rows. It's a wrong system. So before you go away, we're going to do a demonstration. So there are 3 table types in SQL DW. 3 different distributions, 3 ways of working with it. One is called round robin, and then we will distribute as I'll show you. The text says we distribute it evenly across them. There's one with hash, so if there's a particular ID, it will always go to one of us, and it will always go to one distribution. And then replicated, which is a way of sharing that around. Are you still happy to stand up here for a bit? So I'm going to load some data. Did you think you were going to see something technical today? Oh, you were so wrong. So we're going to load some data, aren't we? So we're going to create a round robin table, and I'll show you this. Create table, foo, with a couple of columns. So send that to Saranga. Saranga then sends it down, and effectively we create 60 tables. Shh, don't tell anyone, it's a secret. You see one table. In reality, it's 60 tables, one table per distribution. And then I want to insert some data. So effectively, I go, here's some data. In fact, Saranga, should we just, yeah, all right, give that out. So you've got some data. Okay, now distribute that out. Yeah, round robin. Now, hold up your paper like that. Well, the guy's got some writing. Ignore the writing. Now, you can agree that's smaller, isn't it? Well, sorry, no. We can agree that's smaller, yes? Oh, this is what I need. Oh, the mic isn't working, but you can read, right? All right. Where shall I put these cards? Perfect. Okay. All right. So this is smaller. So that is not evenly distributed. So Victoria has got a whole page, you've got a whole page, but you've got this part of a page. So if I say select star from this table, you would return that all back. But you would finish earlier. Just because you're faster isn't always important. You would finish earlier, and then you'd be sitting around going, I've got nothing to do, while the others are returning their data. And then if I said, we need to now insert some more data, we'll just do that and that. Now, just give those two to those two. I do another insert statement. Oh, well, now you've got a tiny amount. You've got a lot, and Victoria's got a weird uneven amount. Why didn't it start? And the system doesn't know, doesn't care. It will just distribute that table 30 minutes. Thank you. He's multitasking. He is a genius. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, in a DW, you don't. You are waiting for the rest of them to. So you can see how the data isn't evenly distributed. That's pretty weird, isn't it? That if you do small inserts, and small is millions of rows, in DW terms, small is millions. So for all you SQL Server people, millions of rows, tens of millions of rows, hundreds of millions of rows is where we start on inserts, is where we start to get a bit interesting. So you see how the data is poorly distributed. So we could hash distribute that on a particular ID, but we need to know which is the best ID. I'm not going to go into that and how to distribute that. That's another story. It's a whole different session. So can I have the data back? So truncate table. No, they can't go. All right. So stay with me. There is a point, okay? We will. All right. I mean, it's a very vague and tenuous point. Don't get me wrong. Okay. Now, if I say, I think, well, that even distribution, that round robin isn't quite working for me because it's not evenly distributing my data. There's another type called replicate. Oh, that means they've all got the same thing, isn't it? Oh, that would be amazing, wouldn't it? A replicated table is a round robin table. Do I have to dress up as Widow Twanky to get stuff going? Yes, all right. So a round robin table. So a distributed table is actually a round robin table with some but it's got some special features. Okay, so if I search, so let's say I've created a replicated table. Are you? I didn't ask you if you're okay with this. Is it all right? All right. Okay. Well, maybe it's a yes. Okay. So if I distribute my, let's have a go. Let's see. Let's do some. Let's. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it that way. Okay. Can you just distribute that in a round robin way? So I'm inserting into my replicated table, and that's how the data sits. It's uneven. It's, but that's how it is. It's because it's a round robin table. It works in exactly the same way. You're right. Okay, so if you read the documentation, this is something that people sort of misunderstand. Is that my? Yeah. Well, this isn't. Yeah. Don't worry about scripts. So now, if I do select star from my replicated table, what do we think happens? You see? Someone. See what you could have won? So, return it all back. So return the data, blah, 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 everyone's happy. Right. Obviously the data still lives, so just give it back to them. Right. But a magic thing happens called a build replicated table task. And then if you run a build replicated table task, the data starts shuffling around. And then you tell them to do that. And then effectively, each node gets access to an entire copy of the table. So you have both. And then if you want to do anything fancy like joins, each node has got an entire copy of the table. So for dimension tables that you're joining on fact tables, that we don't have to shift any data around between them. We're not doing a mime of that. Don't worry, this is where it will end soon. So you each have a copy. If I then update that table, insert one row, they all drop the cache. Now, just drop. So hide it behind your back. And then if I do a select star again, you all return the round robin version, and you do your work. And then if I then you then build replicated table again, and then you get your cache back. But it isn't sitting on the node. That cache is sitting on Azure storage. So if you scale down, that cache still stays there. If you pause, that cache still stays there. If you scale up and you add me on, and I get access to some of the data, so now we have to redistribute. So I now get access to a bit of the data. I have no cache, so it flushes the cache again. So scaling up flushes the cache, but scaling down doesn't. Should we give these people a big round of applause for coming up? How much time have we got? Okay. So doing that online was very hard to get people to come around my house. Okay. So now I've explained the concepts, I will show you some stuff. Okay. Yeah, go on. Why aren't we hitting it when it's waiting? Well, it's done. If it's yeah, yeah. Oh, well, there's no wait. So once you've done the query, well, once you've done the insert, it doesn't kind of map and care that, oh, I haven't got so far. I've only inserted into 10 of my distributions. It just goes, well, I've got to start from somewhere. So it picks up some distribution. I don't know. The simple answer is, I've just seen that's what it does. So so the reason, so we'll get there. So we'll get there and I'll show you some of the scripts. So effectively, I've got this script I won't go into massive detail, but you can download it from us. It effectively says each of the tables, tell me what the distribution is, and I've got quite a few tables, how much size on disk it is, etc. You know, interesting stuff, and how much data skew. So what I was doing, so data skew is bad. So data skew is essentially where some of the distributions have more data than others. If some of them have got more data than others, those nodes that have access to that data work harder. So skew, bad. So what I was doing, I was looking at a customer system, and then I was looking at the final column here, which is the skew column. So, and I was going through it and going, well, I need to work out how to fix zoom it. There we go. Okay, good. That wasn't nervous. Okay, so if I look down my list, I've got some tables with some high skew. So I've got this, that's pretty bad. Some low ones. There's that one's bad as well. Obviously, look, we haven't got very many rows in it, so that's probably why. There's another one here. But let's have a look at those. We've got some ones with high skew. And then if you go and have a look, I saw that they were round robin tables. And I was, so imagine this 6 or 7 months ago when I hadn't figured out what was going on. So I'm looking for hash tables that have got bad skew, and I'm seeing round robin tables with bad skew. I'm thinking, how do we get skew on round robin? Because it's evenly distributing the data across all our distributions. And then you sort of realize that it's evenly distributing the data, not the rows. Because you got SQL Server people in the room, 8K pages, 64K extents, right? If it's accessing, pushing stuff out in 64K extents, this isn't how it works. But if you imagine it's pushing blocks out in 64K extents, and I'm only using part of it, it's still allocating out the whole extent, and I'm not using the rest. So think about that sort of conceptually. So I thought, right, well, let's have a look. So what I did is using the same script, I can look at a particular table and look at the skew. So I thought I'd put some tests in. So let's start from scratch. See if we can find out what's going on. So does this table exist? Of course it doesn't, and I'm on the wrong database. No one pointed that out. Come on, pay more attention. Okay. There we go. And just so you know, these demos didn't work this morning. So I'm not at all nervous now. Okay, so what I've done is I've just created a round robin table. And I didn't, so if you've used Data Warehouse before, you might expect me to put clustered column store or an index in there. The default is clustered column store index. If you want a heap or you want a clustered index, you have to specify it. So by default, but I'm not doing anything with CCIs or anything interesting or trying to show anything, so I don't care. So now I've got one table. That's what we expect, isn't it? Do we have to go through this again? One table. Okay. But then if I look at this DMV, I've got 60 tables. That's what's really happening in the background. So if you ever wonder why at small scale it's taking a long time to do it, it's because it's doing a lot more work than a SQL Server is doing. This is why you have to think about it slightly differently, that's all. Okay. And then we have table mappings. So we've done table mappings. So I'm going to insert into my table. Oh, okay, so I've got a view underneath that's going to tell me how my data is, how many rows are in each of my distributions. Takes a second to run. It's warming up. Come on, please work. You know you want to work. Come on, work. Come on, please work. Yay! Empty table. All right. I'm going to insert 121 rows. Why 121 rows, I hear you ask? I'm hearing no one ask why 121. That man. Let's have a look. It's still taking a while. Come on, internet. Because it's a magic number I made up. That's because of this table. That is how much 120 rows of this particular table is how much is enough to fill up one distribution before we move on to the next one. So effectively, I filled up one distribution, it's going on to the next one. It's not putting, 2 on each, which is what you would expect. And that's what people read out of our documentation. No, but that's why we have these sessions. It's because this is what, I thought, so if I do the same thing, I can truncate it. So what I'll do is I'll keep running this. If I run this again, now sometimes this takes an inordinate amount of time to show what I'm going to show. Come on, and I did this once, and it took 5 tries. So it's now gone. It didn't pick. If you have a look at those distribution IDs. It's not even picked the next sequential one. I don't know why it's picking it, but I'm completely honest. There's no point pretending. So there's some sort of it might be some hash algorithm about the date. There might be something else. So this is me inserting small amounts of rows into a round robin table. This is why this isn't a good idea. So we've done it again. Now what I'm trying to do is to get it to go into distributions it's already inserted into. And who wants to see it do it, and who's happy to move on? All right, we'll give it one more go. But essentially, it can just go over the top of those because it's just picking random ones. And we will get ones with 240 or maybe 121. And if you do it again, it might just completely ignore those. This is how we get skew in round robin tables. That's pretty weird. But that's just how it works. Now, is this too much detail? Really, because it's going to get worse. Okay? Just happens to be that this table has got X amount of, it's got a number of columns, and that just happens to add up to them. So that each effectively the 121 rows adds up to a certain number of bytes, and really it's just the amount of bytes in that bucket. So you send in, I'm going to insert a gig, and it will break that up into chunks and go, right, you get just a chunk of that data. It doesn't actually really understand the concept of rows, because if it had to go, I've got 1 million rows. I've now got to divide that into 60. I've then got to go, well, you get this one, you get this one, you get this one. So that's why 15 days. Okay, all right. So that's why you get skew. It just doesn't know. So you could be really lucky, and you'll get pretty good distributions. But to fix it, we just rebuild the CCI, and everything's sorted. Easy. Index rebuild will sort it out. Just like all our problems. Makes all our problems go away. Index rebuild, update stats. If you're not into rebuilding your indexes or update stats, see me afterwards for a good hiding. Okay. So, replicated tables is essentially, let me log in, is the same thing, but so this is where even when you work on the cat team, and everybody's human, everybody's fallible, we only know what we know, this is where you discover stuff that nobody's ever seen before, or that we haven't seen, other people have, so we think we're clever, but this is the world we live in. Okay, drop table. Does it exist? No, master. Come on, keep up. We've only got 15 minutes. Look how many more scripts I've got to get in 15 minutes. Okay, create the table. It's a round robin table. So I'm going to skip the bit where I show you it's a round robin table. You just have to believe me, it's a round robin table. So I'm just going to insert some rows into it. My magic number. This is pretty much irrelevant. I'm just inserting some data into a replicated table. But it's not really replicated. is it? Because I haven't selected from it. So let me just go and show you. Okay, here we go. If I do this, just in the same way, I'm going to take this, I'm going to pass this into the next DMV, and I'm going to show you this node table. There's other DMV I didn't show you. I showed you this. Haven't shown you this yet. Oh, I've just copied again. Go on. Sorry. I will learn to cut and paste properly. X. Okay. Now I need to paste instead of copy. Can I do it? Yay! Okay, good. Come on. I've still got 60. 60 distributions, 60 tables. This is just a bit more detail. I'll show you this at the end, but what I thought I'd show you, let's see if we run it. That's just getting from there. There's nothing with an underscore RC. Just so you know, there's no magic trick, nothing up my sleeves. This is how the system starts. So this is a replicated table. We have a DMV that says whether it's going to act in a replicated table way or a round robin way. So before we've queried it, it acts like a round robin. Still has to move the data. See, it's not ready. As soon as I query it, and sorry, that's a lie. Not as soon as I query it. When I query it, it will go to ready. Now what's actually happening in the background is I've queried it, it's kicked off a task I didn't know about, the build replicated table task. Now, the reason why I say it's immediate is because the build replicated table task is shuffling this data around in the background for us. Now that could, depending on the table size, that could take half a second, that could take hours. If you're moving, a few gig, minutes. If you decide, as somebody did do, to move, I think it was a 60 terabyte replicated table, and then they ran out of disk space because it was trying to replicate across all the machines because each of their nodes needed an entire copy. Yeah, that had to go to Microsoft support to go, wait a minute, you've run out. This doesn't work. You've run out. Well, it's your fault. You shouldn't be replicating tables that size. Dimension tables, perfect, because they're not too big. Don't replicate your fact tables unless you need to. Or because the cache gets cleared when you update it, even if I've got a 10, 15, 20 gig, 100 gig table, if I'm only updating it once a night or even once a week, replicate it. Why not? It's going to make your queries go faster. All right. So I'm going to show you the DMV query exec requests, and it will show you that I have this job kicked off. So this is from testing earlier. So this is so that was testing earlier. This is our thing that runs now. We can see build replicate table. I didn't run this. It runs on a static 20, which is the amount of resource it gets. You can't change that. So now the table is replicated. So if I now go down to, okay, so if I take the DMV, 10, lovely, thank you. I can take the request ID, I can put it into this steps DMV, and I can see what was happening behind the scenes. I haven't got a ooh, so we'll have to do a cheer. DMS, Data Movement Service. It's moving that data around. So it's actually showing you what it's doing. It's moving stuff around between the compute nodes. You'll even see it creating these tables. And so this is when I was looking at, I had some spare time, I was looking at what these did, and I discovered the magic hidden replicated table that sits for each distribution. So I've got 3 nodes. How many magic replicated tables should I have? Or magic replicated? 3 nodes. The answer's in the question. Oh, look, somebody's awake. 3. Okay. But you trust me, right? Okay, all right. So I'll show you. All right. If I now look at that DMV again, and I look for specific RC ones, RC replicated cache, I get 3. And it gives you some details. You don't see this in any of the other DMVs. It's sort of just hidden away. You don't see it in Management Studio. This is the only way that I found to get access to it. If I scale up and I went to 4 nodes, I'd have 4. If I just went to 1 node, I would still get a replicated table, even though that 1 node has access to all those distributions. Even if I have a small skew, a quarter of a node, a 20th of a node, a 40th of a node, I still get that. So you just had, so there still is this overhead. No matter, go on. So what you'll see is that if we scroll, so they always appear on the same ones. So if you have a look, the question was, go on, I've forgotten what it was. Yes. Yeah. That's that's an amazing question. So where does this sort of magic object exist? And it tells you, the last column, it tells you that that one is living on distribution 1, that's living on 41, that's living on 21. So you can see that that's, and then if I scaled up, they would be the equivalent of, if I had 60 machines, there would be 60 of these, and each one would have its own. So this is really nice. So we're running out of time. So, okay, this is a really good one. I like this one. So we're just going to do a couple more quick ones. And I like this one. So I had a customer that wanted to insert a load of stuff into a table, make it transactional. So they did a transactional insert and it didn't do any dirty reads. So the default is dirty reads. So I said, well, you've got 3 options, 5 minutes. Okay, we've got 3 options in 5 minutes. You can use recommitted snapshot. And they said, no, I don't want to change anything. Come on, there's only a few of you. Okay. Then I said, well, clearly, you could just do a table rename. And you could go, well, I'll create my tables. I'll effectively use this. I'll take I'll insert everything into a kind of a staging table. I'll then, rename a current table out to an old table. I'll take my staging table. I'll rename it into a table. And then I've then got to drop my whole table. Right. That's 3 schema locks. So, come on. Well worth. That's 3 schema locks. And then I thought, do you know what? That's still not good enough. I wonder, can we do it another way? So I thought, if you look at some of the DMVs, so who's aware SQL Server has you can do partitioning, but you know that every table is effectively default partitioned with a partition behind the scenes. And I thought, I wonder if the same is the same for SQL DW. And it's true. So I can create a table with no partitions. I can create a staging table with no partitions. All right, have we got enough time to do this? I know, why am I asking you? You don't know how long it's going to take. I can simply do an alter table and switch between the two. And that's 1 schema lock, because it's got to escalate up. But, hooray! I've saved a load of work. And guess what? They didn't like it either. Okay, I'm going to leave you all one last thing. And this is not official. This is a bug. Who likes to see bugs? Okay. All right. Who knows that you can do live query stats? Who knows you can do it in SQL DW? What was that? It's not supported. Look, the thing is grayed out. There is no, I can't do it. Except, so this is the bug. So if I try and run this normally, it wouldn't. But if I switch to master, I can actually enable live query stats in Management Studio. This is a bug in Management Studio. Live query stats. And then I switch back to my database. I can then execute the query. And live, so this is a very big table. We should see that increasing and decreasing. There we go. Did you see that change? Were you watching? I know it's a very big table, so it's very slow. I've had complex queries. They look great, but they just execute really quickly. So don't use this because it's a bug. Don't tell anyone about it. I haven't raised it internally because I quite like it, the fact it's there. But we've got 1 minute, and I always like to finish early. So all I can say is thank you all for coming, and it's time to put the session. So I've been Mark. That's been the SQL Synapse Monster. Thank you for coming, and that is the feedback URL. Save, get trees planted, and just fill in the feedback, because that's how we know whether you like the sessions, whether kind of they were useful. It doesn't mean I'll change the session, but it's useful to know. Any questions from online before we finish completely and I let everyone go to get some coffee?
Don't have any questions online at the minute.
Is that because they're stunned with
delay, so hang on
stunned with silence?
Hang on a second. We know there is delay, so if you haven't asked your question online, we're going to finish. So I'm sorry, but write them anyway, and we'll pass it to Mark later.
So for those who do use SQL DW, was this useful? Okay, so about 3 people in the room liked it. So yeah, not a good percentage. Okay, but I'll take that. But thank you all for coming, and